Berkeley has some of the best pizza in the world, and we tried to have some on Tuesday night. We went to Bobby G's. You guys know where that is? On University. Yeah, it's a really kind of fun little place, just a couple blocks south of campus. We're trying to get together with Paul and Natasha, actually. We're having a meeting there, and with pizza, meetings are so much better. I don't know what it is. And so I dropped Jan off there, and I went to park the car because we have great pizza, we have bad parking. And I walked back to Bobby G's, and I walk in, and I can't see my wife anywhere. There are 50 people maybe jammed into this restaurant. It's quite small, and it is full of people. And here is my wife marooned at something that looks like a coffee table all the way in the back, and there is really nowhere to sit. And instead of the usual quiet Bobby G's crowd, it's more like a European soccer crowd. Do you know what I mean by that? Kind of on the edge of a riot all the time. You know, it's very highly energetic. And there are 5 or 6 big flat screen TVs all around the wall, sports bar style. And when I look up and I see President Obama's face on each of the screens, I realize that I have made it to my very first Berkeley State of the Union party. People are gathering to celebrate the president delivering his annual address. Now, this speech is probably the most famous annual speech in the world. It is required by the Constitution, so it has to happen from time to time, and each president uses it to present his or her take on the status of the country and what should be done about it. George Washington gave the very first one to a joint session of Congress meeting in New York City in 1790. Thomas Jefferson hated the idea because he thought the idea of the president giving a speech was too much like being a king, and so he started submitting it as a written report. And that caught on, and for 100 years, the document went to Congress, and a clerk, the names of which we'll never know, actually read the thing out loud to the Congress. Now, Woodrow Wilson changed all of that around 1913. He went back to a public speech before the Congress, controversial in its day, but he persevered, and that's caught on. And now with radio, then television, and then the internet, the entire public has been brought into an event that used to be just the president and the 2 houses of the Congress brought together, and that is what turned us out of Bobby G's last Tuesday night. The idea of leaders bringing reports about how things are going hardly started with the American Constitution. All organizations have done this throughout history, and the early followers of Jesus were no exception. Their practice in the first century Roman Empire for bringing the good news about the death and resurrection of Jesus to that empire in the Mediterranean basin was basically to engage in a series of long road trips, much like the church startup team from Fresno is involved in today. A long road trip from Fresno. They left at 6 o'clock this morning. Can you imagine? 6 a.m.? And they're here, but this is a long-standing Christian tradition. And so when some of the more famous of these early Christian preachers, people like Paul, would go on these long trips, when they would return to whichever city they left from, they would bring back a report of what had happened. And this is for 2 reasons. One was for accountability, so that people who sent them would know that things actually took place. And the other reason was, as we will do today with our 2 teams meeting, they were able then to bring back learnings to the group that sent them, drawn from their experiences on the road. And so everybody benefited from the road trip, even though